Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel. As always, I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, here in Canada. I want to welcome you to this place. This is episode 227, which is, no, 277. It's like crazy high numbers now. I want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for being here. That we've already got chat going this morning. We've got Glenda here and Lisa, Laureline, Ellen, Dana, Dagmar, Samantha. Thank you so much for jumping off the chat this morning. I am sure that you guys will keep it all going as we progress through a very packed show. So thank you so much for jumping in quickly as you did. I'm just going to fix my settings here so that I can make sure that everything is working well. I just want to make sure that we're all off to the races. I don't know why, but I felt like this morning I was kind of out of practice, and I don't know where that came from. It took me forever to get home this morning after dropping the kids off at school, and I tried to jump in with virtual spin group, but nothing was working for me. It was like my stuff. I think I lost connectivity or something. Anyhow, I hope you guys had a wonderful spin group this morning. I'm sorry that I missed it. Good to see you, Eliane. And yeah, I just feel like we've kind of had a bit of a crazy start to this week. It's been kind of a nutty start. So we are here, we are podcasting, we're talking about all the things that we like to work on, all of our stuff that all of our making, all of our using our hand spun, making garments and objects and things that we want to use. Thanks, you guys. Lisa and Glenda said that they missed me. That's very kind. Thank you so much. I wanted to jump in and then I had to get ready for the show. So I am wearing my Metamorphic. This is a design by Andrea Mowry. We are going to talk about this later in the show, so I'm not going to wax poetic about it right now. I'm just going to stick a pin in this sweater just for a moment, and we will come back to it in a little bit. Lisa says she's had a struggly morning too. You know what? The weather has started to change here. It was pouring rain here yesterday. Like the rain yesterday was insane. Flash flooding around our little city as we were driving home from school. And well, actually we were going to the pool because Nora has swimming lessons on Monday. And it was so dark. And then all of a sudden for James's soccer practice at 6 p.m., just a mere 2 hours later, the sky opened up, the sun shone for a little bit before it set. It was really quite lovely. And then the sun was just shining as I was starting this morning, but it's gone behind some clouds now. So we kind of had this very changeable weather. I just feel really low energy. I don't know if you guys get that in the fall. You sometimes sort of feel a bit low energy. Yeah, just kind of being kind to myself, just taking it easy, just slowing down where I need to. Okay, let's jump into the show. We have so much to talk about. I'm going to do a giveaway first because why not? That's a really fun place to start. And I want to do the School of Sweet Georgia giveaway. So this was for all of this luxury spinning fiber. I've got this new workshop that's just come up over the last few months on the School of Sweet Georgia. I have 2 kits to give away. One is the rare fiber, the other one is the goat fiber. I'm really excited to be able to give this away to you guys. So for the goat fibers, that's this one here. I did random number generator from the Google form that I had asked you guys to fill out. And the winner was my friend Eve. And it's her birthday today. So happy birthday, Eve. And she's Ollie Cobb on Slack and Ravelry, and you guys all know her. So she said when I asked the question, I think it was Nicole who had this great question for us to answer. What does luxury spinning mean to you? Eve had responded with, for me, it's learning a new skill. Luxury fiber tends to be harder to spin for me, and having pure pleasure whilst doing so, because who doesn't love the feel of cashmere or silk? I totally agree with you, Eve. And so you will be getting the goat's fiber. And then I did random number again, and the winner was Mary Deloria. And Mary's a long-standing member of our community, and she says, luxury spinning means a chance to savor the fibers that I'm spinning, whether they are, quote, rare like Kiviat or just special like Muga silk. Most of my spinning is fundamental, working with breeds such as Shetland, Corriedale, Romney, but sometimes I splurge on silks, Pagora, and fibers that are hard for me to obtain, such as Icelandic or Cormo. When spinning these lovelies, I take great care in the prep. I slow down. I enjoy each twist, and then I plan a special project to highlight the lovely spun fiber. It's all about enjoyment and relishing the moment. Thank you, Mary, for that very thoughtful comment. That's really lovely. You'll be getting the rare box. So I'll pop those in the mail once I get addresses. Eve, I've already got yours, but Mary, I need to get yours from you. I will send you a message on Ravelry. All right. So much fun to start the show off with a whole bunch of giveaways. We have lots going on this month. Tons going on in the community. We've got Wool Circle happening this time, same time next week. I'll talk about that in just a second. This month we're looking at the final color contrast. We are specifically looking at contrast of proportion. The PDF for all of you who are part of the Wool Circle and up in terms of the tiers on Patreon, that will be publishing on Thursday. And we've got queries not until Saturday, October 28th, so it's towards the end of the month, and the next Spinning Staples group. There is space in that group currently if anybody's interested in jumping in that group. It's meant to be a foundational group. If you're looking for sort of some foundational stuff, sampling, that kind of stuff, going over some of the things to start thinking about as you're moving to the next stage of your spinning career, that might be a group to think about, and they are next meeting on Wednesday, October 25th. If you're interested in the group and you want to know more about the group, you can reach out to me directly, or you can reach out to Rebecca, whatever feels right. We have a really fun thing going on in the community right now, and it's the Core Spin Along. It just started at the beginning of October, and I'm excited to talk about this really quickly because this is something that it's just really fun to have the community coming together to do something. And in community participation later in the show, I'm going to show you some stuff that people in the community have already started putting together. So this yarn here that I spun last year is a core spun yarn that I used like a whole bunch of these really fun Rolegs that the kids have made off of the blending board. And then after core spinning it, I super coiled it. So that's why it's all coiled around and looks like a telephone cable. For those of you who remember phones that plugged into the wall and not just smartphones. I am old enough that we had a rotary phone and we did have a party line when we lived in Prince George. But I remember the idea of it. Like I don't remember the physical phone. And then when we moved down to Vancouver, I remember having the rotary phone in the kitchen, but it was only for like a very brief period of time before we got our own phone and like we didn't have the rotary phone anymore. But anyways, that's what this always makes me think of is the cables on there. This is going on until the middle of December. The last show in December, I'll have some little trinkets and stuff to give away for those who participate in the Core Spin Along. We've got a thread on Ravelry going, and we've got the hashtag textured yarn thread going on Slack. So please jump in, participate. If you've never spun core spun again before, this is a great opportunity. So yeah, think about just jumping in. It's totally informal, just fun. Just an opportunity to spin along and explore something that we haven't done for a while. Coming up on the Wool Circle, more about core spinning. So this will be happening next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. There's always a stream here at 10 a.m. Pacific on Tuesday. So if you're free, you might want to think about jumping into the Wool Circle. It is a free trial on Patreon. You just have to go to patreon.com/woolandspinning and you'll get to see what Rebecca's talking about. So this is coming up next week, which is really, really fun. I'm excited to edit that episode later today. And of course, through the Slack channel and through the Wool and Spinning community, part of what you get when you sign up with us and when you join the community is not just being here for the live streams when you're able to be and being able to go to the Wool Circle, but also being a part of some of the virtual groups that we have. So we've got Virtual Spin Group. I mentioned that at the beginning of the show on Tuesday mornings before the live streams happen. And thank you to Glenda for running that group. And then on Friday mornings, alternating, we've got fiber prep group and weaving group. And the whole idea behind these groups is to come together and intentionally create together, and carve out time in our busy lives for our making. And that's actually why we started fiber prep, was because I had a whole bunch of fiber prep that I wanted to do and it wasn't getting done. So I hope that you guys will think about giving that a try and jumping in. The links are always posted in the #general channel on Slack, which is what opens up when you open the app, when you're part of our community. Book club is up and running. We are finishing off The Crow Eaters by Bapsi Sidhwa. The next meeting, I wrote here is October 9th, but of course I'm wrong. It's actually Monday, October 23rd. So we will be meeting on the 23rd, which is on Monday, and we will be wrapping up the book, and then I will let you guys know what we're doing next, which is really, really fun. Lisa says, I remember my grandma's party line and I was absolutely forbidden to listen in. So of course I snuck time listening in and discovered that most people's conversations are astoundingly boring. Yes. Rebecca says, we had an old party line, but I don't remember it being plugged in. By the time I remember, it was just a defunct object become a toy. Actually, I remember, I'm pretty sure I'm correct. If my mom is watching this, she can leave a comment below and say, I think that our rotary phone, I think we actually had to hand it in to BC Tel, because back then it was BC Tel. I think we had to hand it in. Like, I think my parents actually like took it and dropped it off and like got rid of it. I feel like that was a thing. I could be totally wrong. I'm dating myself by saying that I remember BC Tel. Anyhow, lots of fun things. Let's get into the bulk of the show. I'll see you guys on the other side. A thank you to our sponsor, Brother Drum Carder. They are dedicated to giving you the very best of carding products with a focus on quality, affordability, and customer satisfaction. They are building mill processing equipment, so please stay tuned. Be sure to check out the new products on their website and follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Brother Drum Carder. So it's funny, Crystal said that she's slightly younger than party lines, but she remembers her parents telling stories about them. This is where it's really interesting. I had this whole conversation with Crystal Hesser, who's been on Wool and Spinning Radio a couple of times now. Her and me and Rebecca sat down at the beginning of October to chat. And her and I got into a whole conversation when we recorded the last episode of Wool and Spinning Radio when she was on in August, about this whole idea of, like, I'm technically a millennial, but because I'm in the first couple of years of like where the cutoff is, I'm what they call, my husband's the same. We're both like what they call elder millennials. And if you haven't heard of elder millennials, Google search elder millennial comedian. And I can't remember her name off the top of my head. And if somebody wants to chime in the chat and let me know, she does a whole skit about what it means to be an elder millennial, because we're not really Gen X, because our parents were baby boomers. Whereas the Gen X, their parents were the great generations. And so we got into this whole conversation of like, about like these different delineations and what makes you one versus the other. Because there's a lot of things about my friends who are born in the 70s that I really identify with. But then my friends like Rebecca, who are born a little bit later in the 80s, and my brother who's younger than me, I really identify with them and a lot of the stuff with them. But we're kind of in this like really weird kind of in-between place, and we're called elder millennials. And it makes me laugh every time because it's just so ridiculous. But it's true. It's things like party lines we remember, and there's some other things that she gives examples of where it's like beta machines before VHS became the thing. Some of that kind of stuff. We were right on that cusp of remembering about these things because it was still in the home and we hadn't quite transitioned yet to some of the newer technology. Anyhow, look it up. It is just absolutely freaking hilarious. If you look up, her stuff is on Netflix, and the whole skit, the whole thing about being an elder millennial is just side-splittingly funny. Maybe it's side-splittingly funny because I'm actually one, but I think it's pretty funny just in general. So definitely something to look for. All right, we have a really cool Ask Anything this week, and it's quite a long one, but I wanted to do it because I thought that it would, it's a good question, and it was asked by Jackie, and there was quite a bit more to the question than just this one that I posted on the screen for you to look at. So I'm going to read what she wrote because it's really. Yeah, it's a great question. So she says, I'm wondering what people do to make sure that they have even tension on their singles when plying. I place one on each side of my index finger for a 2-ply, and I'm careful to make sure that they form a symmetrical triangle between the ply twist. But sometimes I wonder if I'm really keeping even tension. Sometimes I don't, and I don't always notice that until after the fact. It doesn't seem to be quite as much of an issue with 3-ply, but I'm wondering if I don't put 1-ply in the gap between my index finger and my thumb, for instance. I just plied some merino cashmere, that's this here, and that was a bit more thick and thin than my usual because this fiber was a cloud of industrial waste, and it took a bit of practice to know how to draft it evenly and which bits to discard. Fair enough. I'm not sure if that contributed to the differential plying, but I found that it's quite pronounced in sections. I did put my Lazy Kate at a good distance off to the side, to turn the page again. And then this is the question. Do you find your plying is more even if the bobbins are sitting behind you, depending on what fingers you're using to separate the singles? Or do you have any other tricks? So there were some awesome responses on Ravelry under the Ask Anything thread. So if this is something that you're struggling with, especially if you're a newer spinner and you're just learning how to ply, I would highly recommend that you go to that post and follow the thread. There were some extremely thoughtful responses, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you to those in the community that wrote those responses. Thank you for doing that. It's just it's really lovely to go back to a question when we were away. We went away for our annual camping trip in over Canadian Thanksgiving, and I came back and you guys had sort of taken care of business, if you will, by watching the threads and answering questions. So what I find really interesting about plying is when we're first coming to spinning and when we're first learning how to spin, I find plying is often kind of blitzed over. Like it's like, oh yeah, and then you ply. And there isn't a lot of really helpful information out there. Funny story, since this question was asked by Jackie, Greta has since written an article, and it's been published on the School of Sweet Georgia website about plying and offering some really helpful tips for plying. And I don't know if I can be smooth enough to be able to get the article and post it in the live chat. Somebody else might need to do that, because I don't want to waste time finding it, because it just takes too long to find stuff. And yeah, it's not coming up. So here it did come up. Their search engine is awesome. So Greta, who's a member of our community and a dear friend of mine, she wrote this article just it was published yesterday. So really, really awesome tips for plying. She's got lots of, pay attention to the twist direction of your singles, all that kind of stuff. So we won't go into some of that more basic things that a newer spinner needs to really think about. But Jackie asked in her question about this differential plying and this differential tension that has been created on her singles and paying attention. And if you notice in the photo of her yarn, because of those thick and thin spots, where some of the yarn is a bit thicker, the other single has kind of spiraled around that thicker piece. You can't really prevent that when you've got thick and thin singles, when you've got different thicknesses going through your different yarn. You can minimize it to a certain extent, but you're going to have that spiral-ish look because you have different tension entering both of your singles at the same time, even if they look like they're quite symmetrical and receiving the twist at the same moment. in time with the same angle and consistent twist, and one isn't being held off to the side like we would with differential plying, where we have one single coming in to be plied at a right hand angle or a 45-degree angle, and the other one is straight on from the orifice. If I've lost you, it's okay. We'll be talking about differential plying in January as part of the teaching content for woolen spinning. So you'll get caught up then with all of the theory. But basically differential plying is where you have different angles. The twist is entering at different tensions and at different angles to the other single or the core or whatever it is that you're spinning it with. And when you have thick and thin, even if your singles are coming together at the same angle, you're going to have one, if one is thicker, if the other one is thinner, it's going to want to kind of spiral around the other one. So paying attention and holding those singles under the same amount of tension and being a little bit more mindful of that, especially when you're coming to those areas so that you can minimize it, is sort of the only thing you can do. You can't prevent it completely because the singles are a different thickness. So some of the things that you can do to enhance the look of spiral ply is to enhance the look of the thick and thin. Intentionally spin one of your singles as a thicker singles, and then intentionally lay the thinner singles around the thicker one and see what you can create, because you'll create an intentional spiral ply. If that's not what you're trying to do, which here that's not what Jackie was trying to do, you can minimize the effect of the spiraling by maintaining that even tension. You might want to increase the break a little bit so that your uptake is a little bit stronger, so that you don't zone out. I find that actually really helps. I start to zone out if my uptake is a little bit slack, a little bit, a little bit more moderate, a little bit looser, because I just kind of zone out because there's nothing pulling that yarn onto the bobbin, and it doesn't keep me focused. So I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but sometimes just having that little bit of a tug just keeps you a little bit more present. Keeping the triangle is really key. So that triangle from where the twist is entering to your two singles is really important, keeping that consistent the whole time. And the other thing that we hadn't mentioned in the Ravelry thread that wasn't mentioned was washing makes a really big difference. So Jackie had taken this photo prior to washing. Often, if something's really spiraled and really pronounced and it's not really what you wanted and you wanted a little bit more of a conventional ply look, a lot of that excess tension and that excess twist, it'll dissolve in the water and everything just kind of relaxes and just comes back to center. That's sort of how I think of it. And a lot of that will dissipate in the water and it'll look a little bit more like a conventional yarn, especially in those areas. It's not like your entire yarn looks spiral plied by any, and I know you weren't trying to spiral ply, but after washing and sort of finishing the yarn, giving it a snap to just, make sure that twist is evenly distributed around the skein, hanging it to dry and just letting it do its thing, a lot of that will dissipate. The other thing you can do is you can actually increase the amount of twist. You can put quite a bit more twist into the plying. It may or may not be what you're going for. It might not be what you want to create. You don't want to have a really super high twist yarn. You want to have something a little bit more balanced, a little bit more moderate twist. It depends on what you're trying to create. But by putting more twist in, it almost kind of hides the spiral, and it hides, it cinches down the thicker parts of your yarn. The only thing is that twist tends to go to thinner areas of yarn, and so it can enhance the twist in those thinner singles around the thicker parts. When you watch it and you see the twist go into your yarn, you can see it. But after washing and allowing that twist to dissipate, it doesn't depending on what you're going for and what the use of the yarn is going to be, it often is another thing that'll kind of hide some of those inconsistencies. One of the best things for hiding inconsistencies in spun singles, especially in a situation like this where you're working with a cloud prep that's industrial waste, it's not probably actually really meant to be spun and you're just playing around and experimenting, which I think is awesome, is make a 3-ply. Because having those multiple singles wrapping around each other evens out a lot of those inconsistencies. And I know that you know that, Jackie, but for somebody who's newer and just coming to spinning, that's something to keep in mind. All right, cool. That was a great question. So thank you, Jackie, for asking it. Okay. Let's do something we haven't done for a while, and it is sweater reflections. We haven't done sweater reflections in a while, and I wanted to do it because we're getting into sweater weather. I'm wearing my sweaters more and more because it's cooler and I'm layering, and this was something that was an interesting idea that came up back in the spring when I did a survey. And I asked people, like, what would you like to see in the podcast? Like, is there any segments that you would like to see? And several people came up with this idea of reflecting back and looking at previous projects and things that I've since learned from making them. Because I share with you guys in real time when the stuff is done. But what about months, years down the road? What would I have done differently? What do I still like? What worked well? How's the fit? All that kind of stuff. So let's do that now. And we're going to do it about Metamorphic. So I was excited to share this with you, and you know what is so funny? You guys are gonna laugh at me. I actually never got great photos of this sweater. I finished it in kind of a bit of a blur, and I never really got good photos. And in general, Mike and I do make I make an effort to ask Mike to get photos of the sweater, and I just never got really good photos of it. So I am wearing it. I've worn it quite a few times. Let's go back to the beginning. So I finished this. I knit this because I just really wanted to knit the pattern, and I had a lot of stashed yarn, and I had some colors in my stash that I thought might work well, and they seemed to kind of fit the gauge, and I did a swatch and it sort of seemed to be okay. And that was kind of, you know, how this project got started. It wasn't spinning for it intentionally. It wasn't making it you know, with great intentionality from the beginning. It was, I'd already spun the yarn. It was in my stash. The yardage was correct. Let's just knit the sweater and see what happens. So from that perspective, this is Metamorphic by Andrew Mowry. And what I like about this sweater is it is knit. Is it knit inside out? I can't remember. I don't remember if it's knit inside out or not, but the wrong side, quote unquote, is what shows. So what I really liked about that idea was because the colors would be almost kind of like, even though it's striping, it would be almost kind of difficult to see sort of, you know, that overall really overt striping. Instead, it's very subtle. It's a little bit nuanced. You can see the color more so than the stripes. Now for fiber, the gray was from Small Bird Workshop, my friend Catherine, who lives on the island. And it was a baby doll South Down cross that she had blended at the mill with Tussa silk. I spun this woolen. I spun it long draw. It was very fast to spin, but there are chunks throughout the roving. It was like a pin drafted roving. There were there were chunks of the Tussa silk like in the prep, and so there's places on the sweater which you can't see in the photos and you can't see on me right now, but if you're looking up close, there are areas where there's like a little chunk of Tussa silk. I suspect over time it'll just kind of work its way free and they'll fall out. There's a few of them. Thank you, Dana. She says it's knit inside out. Thank you. I couldn't remember. It's been a while. And so I had this 2-ply yarn, very finely spun, a little bit inconsistent, like what we were talking about just now from Jackie's post. You know, sort of a slightly difficult prep to work with, very downy fiber with this silky, you know, tussa that was blended into it. If I were to work with that prep again, I probably would have thrown it through my drum carder a few more times and really blended it really well. But it was a fast spin and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't anything I had to really think about. I just spun a fine 2-ply woolen and didn't really think about it after that. About 200 grams of fiber to begin with. And then the Falkland was from West Coast Color from several years ago, and it was left over from a different project that had been Was it from that? Anyways, it got plied up as a 2-ply, and it was the remainder of of bobbins that had been from a 3-ply project. So it was just like remnants. I'd spun it as a 2-ply. You can see here how fine those yarns were just laying on my blocking board here. So when I went to do the swatch, I knit the swatch with gauge, with the needles that were called for gauge, which I think were 3.25 millimeter needles. And over the course of the last couple of years, what I like in fabric has really changed. And that's why I wanted to share this with you. These 2 yarns were extremely finely spun, very lightweight, lots and lots of air. And the swatch, while beautiful, if you feel it and you pull at it and you kind of tug at it, it's quite loosely knit in some ways. And I probably should have gone down to a 2.75 millimeter or a US size 2 needle to have a slightly denser fabric and a slightly more structure to the fabric to compensate for the fineness and the airiness of the wool. So the reason for that, and the reason why I think that my overall preferences for the fabrics that I'm creating has changed, and we'll talk about that again later with another project that I've started over this past week. I think a lot of it is because of the knowledge that I have started to amass and learn from weaving, and from looking with a very critical eye at woven fabric and what you're looking for in structure and integrity of woven fabric. And so then bringing that back to my knitted fabric, it started to change how I'm approaching knitted fabric. So, when we first started the podcast, which is almost 10 years ago, because Nora is 9, because I turned the camera on in June of 2014, and she was 3 months old, 2 months old. She was like 2.5 months old. And so I can always gauge how old the podcast is based on her age. And honestly, at that time, it was very popular on Ravelry and personal blogs, and Instagram was just starting to be a thing. People were knitting really gauzy fabric at really, really loose gauges. So it wasn't uncommon to see a sweater knit on 4 millimeter needles on really fine fingering weight yarn. You guys all know the sweaters that I'm talking about. And that was kind of the thing. And so I kind of took that and continued working with that. And in my hand spun, I just kept working that way. And now making sweaters like this over the last couple of years and seeing how the fabric wears long term, I can see that the integrity of that fabric is just not quite there. It just needs to be a little bit more structurally sound, a little bit denser, a little bit less, a little bit tighter of a gauge so that the fabric wears really super well. So why do I say this? The sweater is extremely lightweight. It's easy to wear. It's not heavy. It's not thick. It has a lovely kind of feel to it. I'll go to the bigger camera for just a minute. One of the things that I really like about this sweater is because it's lightweight, I can really layer. I can throw a lot of stuff under. So I have an undershirt, like a tank top on underneath, that's here somewhere. I've got a tank top on underneath, I've got a collared shirt that's quite long, and then I have the sweater over top, and it doesn't feel heavy or bulky. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing a lot, but I'm warm. So that's good. That airiness and that lightness in the fabric that's a good thing. There's one of those Tussa silk naps. What's not so good is that the rib cannot keep its shape. So once I wore it the first time and it sort of stretched out and accommodated to accommodate my shoulders and my body, same at the bottom, it wasn't ever going to go back. Same with the cuffs. So once the cuffs were kind of the shape that they were going to be after wearing a little bit, that was kind of it. I suspect over time, it's just starting. There's going to be a lot of pilling. And a lot of it obviously is happening under the body, and that's because this is where everything wears. So those things probably could have been a little bit, not completely prevented, don't get me wrong. We still have just generally wear and tear of fabric and of our sweaters and of wool. But it probably would have been a little bit better if I had knit a larger size to compensate for my smaller gauge. I had more than enough yarn. I totally could have done that. So long-lasting jumpers and sweaters, we need a slightly tighter gauge, a slightly, we really need to think about the structure and the integrity of the fabric. And that theme is going to run under everything that we talk about for the rest of today. Right. That is so cool. Sam says that this sweater is what inspired me to do my first hand spun sweater. That is so cool, Sam. I'm so glad. I hope you actually made it. The other Sam says, oh my gosh, yeah, there's Sam from Scotland and there's Sam from Wales. She was asking, do we want long-lasting forever jumpers? Do we want to be able to have an excuse to make more? Yeah, of course. You know what I think? I have gotten to the point now where I want to keep making stuff and I want to keep making sweaters, and I don't want to not have that be a part of my life. I think I'm just always going to have that desire to want to cast on another sweater. I think it's just in my DNA. But I want to have sweaters that I'm going to wear regularly, that I know that are going to withstand the wear and tear that I place on them when I place it on them, and that I can pull them out of the cupboard or the drawer or wherever and know that it's still going to be really lovely and it's still going to wear well and it's still going to be great, even if I don't necessarily choose it all the time. Does that make sense? Considering how much work I put into a hand spun sweater, I want mine to last longer than they do. I agree, Rebecca. I've had a few that I've had to let go of because they didn't last, and it's heartbreaking. She did finish it. The other Sam, the one from Scotland, said she did make her first hand spun sweater. So that's wonderful. I'm so glad. All right. Okay, so let's keep on keeping on, you guys. We've got a big show and it's already after 10:30. All right, so I started a project this past weekend while we were away that I don't really know why I started it, but I did. So let's talk about that next. All right, so I started this little project while we were away this past weekend. And the reason for starting it was actually because I wanted to take something with me that was kind of new. That was something I hadn't worked on for a while, was something totally different from what I had been working on for a while. And this was a braid of Woolly Bully from deep, deep stash, probably from like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 years ago. And it's proven to be a little bit of a beast. So let me go back here for just a moment because I have a photo of the actual fiber. So this is the braid before I started pulling it apart. And for those of you who've been around long enough, you maybe remember who Woolly Bully is. And this fiber was actually on the cover of a spin-off magazine issue years ago. And I ended up buying it completely by accident. I had no idea that that was the fiber that had been on the cover. I got the magazine after I bought the fiber. I guess I could say maybe I had good choice, toot toot puff puff, but this was the original braid. And so we were at the campground. That's actually the picnic table. We were at the campground and I started pulling it apart. And I started pulling the braid apart, and it's Columbia, and it says on there that it's raw roving. So I think, so when I started pulling it apart, I realized right away that it wasn't exactly what I had sort of anticipated, that wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. And it was also in pieces, which made it really easy to start kind of dealing with it. And because it's been in my stash for so long, it's quite compacted and quite, there's just all of the air that would have been in there is sort of gone. And what I did was actually just started pulling it apart. And so I started pulling it apart into these little sort of butterflies. And I had brought my Inoxia Crafts spindle. It was completely coincidence that it matched. It was that I just grabbed one, didn't look at it, threw it in the bag. Total, coincidence. And I'm not sure, I had the links for Inoxia for these spindles. I'm gonna throw in the chat for you guys. But this is a very, very downy fiber. And because I had all these, like, as I pulled the roving apart, it was breaking. And so, because they were like little bits and pieces of it. And so I just started like pre-drafting it and just very gently like pulling it apart and making it really, really nice to spin. And then I sort of started doing a little bit of a sampler here, but it's not super, super even, the spinning. Like I found the fiber is wanting to go sort of a little bit thick and thin. I'm trying not to spin it too thin, like so thin like I normally do. Been really trying to leave it a little tiny bit thicker and just not drafting quite so thin, because I do tend on spindles to kind of default to really, really thin singles. Because otherwise, quite frankly, nothing gets done. Like, I'm still working on my Fat Cat Knits London Fog, which was the whole point. The whole point was to savor this spin. And I thought I was getting close to the end, and I thought I was doing really super well, and I thought I was starting the last 2 ounces, and I found another 2 ounces. So I have no idea where this is supposed to go. I must have messed up when I divided up the fiber, because I have a whole other, like I've got 4 ounces left and I should only have 2 ounces left. So I've been savoring it, but it's just spinning up so unbelievably fine. It's probably hard to see that on the small camera, but there we go on the bigger camera. And you know, it takes so long. And then part of the thing too is that then the yarn is really super fine, and this is gonna be a 3-ply, the Fat Cat Knits. But it kind of starts a cascade effect of like, you're spinning really super fine, and then you've got a really super fine yarn to work with, and then, well, what are you going to use that for? And you know, this is a great example of like just a fantastic sweater pattern for yarn like that. But I probably should have knitted a little bit denser, but then you've got yardage issues. Like, it just never stops. So all that to say, I'm trying not to spin this quite as thin. My initial plan was to do just do a big 2-ply, but we'll see. I'll fill this up and then I'll keep on going. I don't expect to be talking about this again for a very, very long time. I'm just gonna keep it off to the side while I continue to work on my Fat Cat Knits spin. I also have ended up, for some really weird reason, I've ended up with a lot of works in progress, which is not my favorite. So I think what I'm going to end up doing over the next probably month or so from now until Christmas is just really make a conscious effort to finish off some of this stuff that's been languishing. I did get a little bit of work done on my Attune shawl, but unfortunately, it's just not enough to show you guys any kind of progress. Even though I got several more chart repeats done, it's just such a big knit, and I'm gonna be working on it for a really super long time. So I'll share it with you guys when I have something to show you, because otherwise it's just kind of same every week. And I know you guys totally understand. So yeah. Dominique says, I want to knit as many sweaters to stay warm. I want my sweaters to stay nice as long as possible. Lisa, very good thought. The point is control over the fabric. Some things you want to be hard wearing, some things you want to be drapey, some things you want to drape. Yeah, agreed. I messed up the weaving I was working on this morning and just messed up the bat I was carding. Oh, Lisa. How do you screw up a bat? I have innovated. Totally. You said you were having one of those mornings, so there you go. Oh, she said, or I meant sometimes you want something squishy. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes you want drape, sometimes you want squish, sometimes you want really hard wearing. It really depends on what you're going for. Absolutely. And it's nice to have the variety. It's nice to have different stuff that you've got going for you. So I finished the workshop for the School of Sweet Georgia back in the spring, and it was the luxury workshop. And the luxury workshop was kind of meant to be an overview of all these different fibers to give people kind of a jumping point to go deeper. And So I started thinking about sort of what we might want to do next. And one of the things that kept coming up again and again and again was sampling, and doing a little bit more of a sort of advanced deep dive into sampling and what that might look like, and you know, working from a specific pattern, and maybe, you know, doing something a little bit more intentional to get yourself going. So to that end, I started a project, mostly actually because I need the sample. So that's what we'll talk about next. So this is kind of a fun little thing. I grabbed a pattern off of the School of Sweet Georgia, and I modified it heavily to adjust for my gauge. And actually I just clicked on the wrong screen. So let's go here first. And let me just get a sense of where I'm at and what I need to be doing, because, you know, life. So this is called the Total Brioche. It's a pattern by Matt Ackers, and it's a great little pattern. And I have wanted to do something with this yarn for so long. This is my Ravelry project page taking you to this yarn so that you can see these photos and see more information about it. But it was it was from a farm in Ontario called Richardson's. My friend Jenny gave this to me a long time ago, and it was a Romney Icelandic 50-50 blend. And I spun it up by pre-drafting it quite aggressively and pre-attenuating it. I loaded it onto my distaff, and I just spun it off the wheel. Very similar to what I talked about last week by doing a very similar prep with my Bramble Ridge fiber that I'm spinning up. I thought that yarn would be done for today, and I haven't even barely started the second bobbin. So go figure. There you go. I think it's because we were away. And then last weekend was nutty, and then this past weekend was nutty, so it's just nutty all around. This yarn spun up to be a 2-ply. It was a wool, you know, semi-woolen yarn. I spun it continuous backward. Lots of air. I really liked it when it was finished. It was just a lovely yarn. It had the drape and sheen of the Romney. It was quite soft, surprisingly. And it had this lovely halo, and like, I just really, really liked it. And there's a mom at the kids' school. Her kids are in the same program as my kids. And last week she was wearing a hand-spun, hand-knit toque, because she's a spinner. She spins on support spindles. And it was just a 1x1 rib. It was just a, you know, a slouchy 1x1 rib. She had it on. It was a bit cool that day. It was really, really cute. And this project had been kind of marinating at the back of my mind for quite a while. And I went, when we came home, I came and got the yarn out. And I pulled it out of my stash. I skeined it up. I did not do grist or yardage or anything on it. I'll do that with whatever's left, and I'll figure out, you know, the weight of the toque and what the yardage is and blah, blah, blah at that point. But I wound it all up, and I looked at the pattern, and I thought, okay, I would like a slightly denser fabric. I want something that's really going to wear well, that's going to be a really good toque. The brioche, I don't want it to stretch out and lose its shape, and I want it to fit me. Like, I want something that's going to really fit, like, really, really well. So without doing a gauge swatch, because, you know, that would have been smart, I cast on what I thought would be the correct number of stitches based on the pattern, because I just adjusted my gauge. And it was way too big. So of course it was. So then I was like, okay, I was about an inch in. Brioche to start off with is not awesome. It's just a little bit, it's kind of annoying, but it's just fiddly. It's not bad. It's not hard. It's just a little bit fiddly. So I ripped it all out. I'm only doing one color. So the pattern is actually for a 2-color brioche. So this is the pattern. This is the toque pattern. So it's a 2-color brioche. In the workshop, when I develop the workshop, it will be 2-color. But for myself, I wanted it just 1 color, plain. This is a sample. I'm going to use this to inform going forward how I'm going to teach this workshop. And so I ripped it all out and I recast it on. And part of the struggle, I thought this would be done by today. Like, I thought I'd be talking about a finished object. The struggle is a mismatch between needles and yarn. I am using Chow Goose. I love my Chow Goose. Do not get me wrong. I use almost exclusively metal needles, but this yarn is a bit splitty and I'm working on a small needle, a 2.75 millimeter needle, a US size 2. And these are so pointy that they keep splitting the yarn. And what would actually be a better needle would be a wooden needle. I need a bamboo needle, like, you know, one of the wooden ones, one of the Likey driftwood needles, something like that, because these keep splitting the yarn and it's just making the knitting experience less than awesome. It's annoying. So it slowed me right down. However, I love the fabric. I love the effect of the brioche. It's very understated because of being only one color. And it's this natural kind of ivory of the Romney Icelandic with a beautiful halo. It looks like mohair. It looks like I'm holding mohair with it, but I'm not, which is really cool. So the only thing I don't like about brioche is I find it always biases. I found my newspaper pullover by Joji Locatelli that I finished back in the summer. It biases too. And once you're wearing it and you're pulling it and it's on, it doesn't, but when you're knitting, it kind of biases a little bit and it kind of stretches to the side. But the fabric's really pretty. I'll hold it up close so you guys can really see it. Isn't that gorgeous? And of course, brioche, same on the back side. I really like it. I really like brioche. I've done quite a few brioche projects now over the last year or so, and I really like it. But like I said, total mismatch between the needles and the yarn. So hopefully I'll have that finished next time we stream at the beginning of November, because I want to get this done so that I have a sample to work from for putting together the content to teach this sort of advanced sampling. So yeah, speaking of squish, totally, Lisa, totally. Yeah. All right. What do we have? What else do we have going on here? We have a really fun FO, and I wish I could show this to you under black light, but unfortunately, I can't do that. So, which is really too bad, because I don't think that I can change my lights to be black light. In fact, I'm almost positive that I can't. Actually, I probably could if I played around with it for long enough. But I don't know how to do that, and I'd probably completely mess up the whole thing. So I'll try and get a photo and post it, but let's talk about Nora's new tank top. Okay, I started this a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I started it right after the last live stream at the beginning of the month, because I promised Nora that I would finish this as soon as possible for Halloween. So this is ginger snap yarn. I have lost the label. Like, I don't know where the yarn label went. I spent some time yesterday looking for it and I can't find it anywhere. But if you look really closely at the yarn, you see those blue bits everywhere. There's blue there, blue there. There's blue there, blue, all that blue, not the black, the purple, or the white, but the blue. You can see it around the corner here. There's that. It's basically speckle dyed with blue. So there's the purple and the black that was placed on the yarn. But then underneath, but over top as the last layer, he speckle dyed this blue. And it's all over the yarn, and I'm going to reskein this up. So hopefully I can get a photo of the yarn under blacklight and you'll be able to see it. But it's blacklight activated, and that blue is what's activated. So when she's wearing it, it looks like a speckle. It's very cool. I will try to get some photos of her under blacklight. But I finished this off for her. I have knit this pattern before. I talked about this sweater in the summer, the original one that I made for myself. And she, as soon as I finished it, she kind of commandeered it and she wanted it. So I ended up wearing it. I think I ended up wearing it only once or twice. This is my project page on Ravelry taking you to this if you're curious about this sweater and about knitting it. Several people in our community have made it. It's a really cool pattern. It's called the Mini Mock Tank by Jessie Maid. The purple is fantastic. It's 4 fingering weight yarn. And this is my original one that I made in hand spun that I've worn quite a few times. And actually Nora wearing it with her with her flannel kind of gave me the idea that like maybe I should do that with mine, either to put the collared shirt underneath mine and wear it over top, or to put it underneath with a long sleeve t-shirt and put a flannel, like just layer, right? Like all the layering. So I didn't make any modifications to this. You can see it behind me on my dress form. I thought she was going to wear it to school today, so I got her a bunch of photos of her at school yesterday. But she said she wore it yesterday and she didn't want to wear it today. And I was like, yeah, no, like whatever you want to do. So I didn't make any modifications. There were two things that I did differently from my original one that I wish I had taken the time to do on hers, and I still might before I skein this up. I did not do a tubular cast off at the neck or the bottom hem, which the pattern calls for. The reason is because, in all honesty, it's for Nora. It's going to be thrown on her floor. It's going to be thrown in her dresser. It's probably going to accidentally go through the washing machine. It might even make it accidentally into the dryer. It's not probably going to be treated really, really super well. And I just didn't want to spend the time. I'm being really honest. I just didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time doing a tubular cast off. It's not my favorite doing all that grafting anyways. I'm not slow at it. It's just not my favorite. The problem with not doing that is that it's made the neck a bit tight and the bottom a bit tight. So to get it on and off, she has to really tug. So I am thinking about maybe going back and fixing that and redoing it, or doing a stretchy bind off. Yeah, Christine says, I don't blame you. And we were in the car, we were driving home from the truck actually, driving home from our camping trip last weekend. So I cast this off a week ago yesterday. She's worn it every day since. And I just wanted to get it done, you know, like I didn't want to sit there on the Coca-Cola trying to like, you know, do the tubular cast off on the lower edge and the upper edge. Does it take away from it in any way once it's on her? No. You know, would it be a nice finishing touch if it was sort of that little bit extra? Yes. Does she notice? No. At first she was like, Mommy, it's too tight, it's too small, it won't go on. And I was like, yeah, you know, I suspected as much. I could have done Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. That would have fixed that issue and that problem. And I could still go back and do that because that would fix it without having to do a tubular cast off on both edges. The other thing is I did do all of the ribbing down the side. I hadn't done all of that extra ribbing on mine, but I did do it on hers, and it just gives her an ever so slightly looser fit. So when you pull at it on here, it's just a little bit looser than mine. And I think for a 9-year-old girl where I'm thinking about modesty, that's a good thing. She often wears like little bra tanks, little like sports bras underneath everything. She finds that really comfortable. She likes that because she's quite modest herself. She likes to be covered. And the nice thing is that this follows all of those lines. You can't see that she's wearing something underneath. And so I think it helps her to feel really confident and comfortable in it, because it's not like it's going to move at the side here. This isn't going to move and show anything off. And yes, it does fit me as well, which is kind of fun. So if she stops wearing it or she loses interest, I can wear it. And she actually took mine that I made and she's got it in her drawer, because she's got the perfect t-shirt that picks up the blue of mine. And they match really beautifully. And she's been wearing that with that long sleeve t-shirt underneath of mine, which is really great. If it means it gets worn more, perfect. As long as my hand spun one doesn't get wrecked, I'm happy to let her wear it. So, yeah, I agree, Lisa. She says, yay for confidence and being comfortable. Absolutely. So super fast knit, which I knew that it would be. I knit it in one weekend. I did lengthen the body by 1 inch. So the pattern calls for a 7-inch body before you start the ribbing. I added an extra inch and did about 8.5 inches long, just because, again, modesty. Nora's like me, she's long torsoed. It'll just mean that she can wear it for longer and that it'll fit her for longer. So she wears high-waisted jeans. The jeans that she's wearing in these photos are high-waisted, and but you know, it's funny, she's grown so much that they're not as high-waisted as they were. So I was a little bit concerned because they're her favorite jeans. but when she put the tank top on, she's jumping here so you can see her belly. But when she's just standing there, she's fully covered and she's comfortable. So that's what's really important. So that's some completely brand new projects that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. Stuff that's I haven't really talked about before on the podcast, some things that you'll hear about again in the future, some stuff that you probably won't, because this is going to take absolutely forever. I'm not sure how I'm going to get that done this side of this decade, but we'll roll with it. We'll see how it all goes. All right, let's get into some community participation and start wrapping up this show. Okay, so we've got lots to share with you guys this week. This is quite a few weeks of makes that you guys have been working on. So we have our core spin along. I talked about this at the beginning of the show. We're celebrating an opportunity to learn a new technique. Maybe we're perfecting an old one, or maybe we're building on the simplicity by spinning some core spun together just as a community. So if you've done core spinning before, and you want to just make a small skein just to participate, please do. Try a different prep maybe from what you've done before. Try something new. Just play with it. See what feels right. This was from Crystal. She is the one that's co-running this with me and Rebecca. And she started off with this just beautiful yarn, kicking off the core spin along. With a gradient spin. I am so stoked to see what everyone spins up. Y'all know how much I love textured yarns, and I just was so pleased to see that she had posted this. It's just fantastic. Beautiful yarn, love the gradient. I love gray with anything, let's be honest. Beautiful yarn. Thank you, Crystal, for making this and jumping into the along so quickly and with such vim and vigor. I really appreciate it. This next one is from Rebecca. This is fresh on her wheel, and I think she's gonna be talking about this yarn on Tuesday during the Wool Circle. So really fun bobbin shot. And this is from Kat. She's been playing with beehives on her core spun lately. So I don't know, the photo at the bottom in the right hand side there, that purple and blue, I mean, how gorgeous, but you can really see the size of some of the beehives that she's been playing with. And then the other yarn, some different angles and some different shots of it, but how gorgeous are those beehives? Oh, okay, so Rebecca's going to be talking about that yarn that I just shared. She's going to be talking about it in November. That's awesome. A little bit of a cliffhanger for you guys. And isn't this yarn by Kat just incredible? You could wear that as a necklace, honestly. It's beautiful. Amazing, Kat. Thank you. All right, fiber prep. There has been a surprising amount of fiber prep recently. I don't know if it's because people are hunkering down. They're kind of looking for that warm, cozy. They're spending some time, just doing something really nurturing for their soul, just really enjoying that preparation of preparing fibers, getting ready to spin. I don't know, but there's been a ton of it in the Slack channel recently. This is from Greta. I'm blending washed locks of this fleece that I got in 2022 with some lovely fluffy Kiviot. I filled the blending board with 5 grams of wool and 3 grams of Kiviot, and then she had 6 mini row legs per batch. Her initial sampling, she's spinning them long draw at 15-1 on her match list with Scotch tension. Lovely. Beautiful sampling there, Greta. I love the little baby skeins of wool that she's got there, and then she's got her row legs ready to go, and the fiber just looks scrumptious. Amazing. Hi, Megan. Good to see you. She's just jumping in because she's usually at clinic at this time, but she's got a few minutes. It's good to see you. This is from Dion. This is really fun. She's got this gorgeous blend going. So after Sam posted a link for drafting through a hand card, I thought about doing it on my current prep. And then I mentioned that how I was reminded of doing this at Knit City. And so she took 3 braids and split them horizontally into 8 strips. And then she took 1 strip from each braid and she ran it through her drum carder and got a nest, just like I did for my Sweet Georgia spin back in the summer. I started working on that in June, and then it's going to be my Weekender Light, which I'm kind of stalled on knitting on at this point, just because I've got so much going on. But then on the live, both Rebecca and I thought of the blending board for combo drafting. So she didn't spin her final knit fiber, so she put the rest of the nest on her blending board and drafted across the nest. So going across as she's blending, and that's her final roving ready to spin. Yeah, I can't wait to see this spun up. I think it's gonna be phenomenal. Thanks, Dion, for sharing all of the details of this project. This is from Taji. She's been super busy. We haven't heard a lot from her, but she was really inspired by the combo drafted spin that I was doing. And she had a bunch of braids collecting dust. So she pulled out 20 ounces of fiber, split each one into 8.5 ounce strips, put 1 strip of each braid into little bags, and then carded 8 2.5 ounce bats. And then from there, each bat was carded twice so that the colors blended but remained distinct and not completely homogeneous. And then she immediately pulled off a bit to sample and knit a swatch with, and we'll see my grist and fabric when it is all dry. I'm tempted to diz it into roving after seeing what Dion was working on in the last from here. Brilliant prep though, and she's planning the Weekender crew. That's one of the, it's another sweater very similar to this one, but it's the Weekender done with a crew neck. Gorgeous, Taji. I can't wait to see this finished up. Look at those colors. And of course, you guys know me, the colors. You had me at the colors. Beautiful. And of course, her final little sample there. Gorgeous, Taji. Good to see you. And then this one is from Diane. I had some soft fin left over from another project that wasn't enough to spin up into a usable skein on its own. But a friend from Guild gave me a Ziploc bag of lovely soft llama, so that went into the mix. I chose some silk that will give me the same range of colors as this 100% fin skein that I spun a few years ago, and I'm hoping to use them both in the same project. That's going to be gorgeous. I can't wait to see that all carded up and see the 2 finished skeins next to each other. Thanks for sharing, Diane. And of course, we've got all of our Year of Color stuff going on. You guys know all about that. It's been going on for a long time, all year. We're almost done. We're almost going to be winding it up. We're down to our last couple of months of Year of Color stuff. And it's not too late to join in. All of the content is available for anybody who signs up. You can go back and watch it all. It's all available. And this is from Dion. I started a sweater project for some yarn that she dyed. I used my deep magenta color from my CMYK color wheel and over dyed it with navy. This picture shows it's lightened so that you can see the tonality of the yarn. I didn't include the first photo because it just gets to be a little bit too much to see on YouTube, but you can see it on the Slack channel. She's got it all posted, and she's knitting the Getaway by Alicia Plummer. Beautiful. This is from Megan, 2 more bobbins plied in her color wheel. So she's making a whole color wheel. And I think the plan, she's here in chat, I hope she'll chime in. I think the plan is to eventually plan a whole colorwork sweater with all of this yarn that she's been making. Absolutely gorgeous, Megan. Thank you for sharing. And then we've got just general makes and shares. I'm still seeing people making their Attune shawls. They're still finishing up. Like me, they got left behind and didn't quite finish for the deadline back in September, but that's totally fine. She took a few photos of her Attune shawl progress from Elizabeth. I'm still inching away at it, and it's giving me the chance to play with more color and texture and enjoy the squishiness. Beautiful, Elizabeth. I love this. Yeah, so Megan's got 2 sweaters planned, and she's going to cast one on this weekend. Amazing. This is from Liz. It's not pretty, but I think I'm kind of figuring it out. Hardest part is I can't feel the fiber in my hand or how hard or light I'm pinching. I have a long way to go. So Liz has quite a significant injury on her left side, and from a stroke, and so she's teaching herself how to support spindle, which is incredible. So well done, Liz. She's not sure she'll be able to do it. She obviously can do it because she's doing it. And it's really cool to see her. She was on Wool and Spinning Radio back talking about her story and about what happened to her. So I encourage you to go back to that episode. It's Wool and Spinning Radio, Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works. And she talks about her rehab and she talks about her story. And this is really incredible. And I think one of the things that's so inspiring about Liz is she keeps teaching herself how to do hard things. The more they tell her she can't do stuff, the more she learns to retrain her brain and to work with her brain to be able to do this stuff. It's really incredible. Yeah. Weaving. We've got a couple of really fun weaving things to share with you. So this is from Lisa. This is a lot of reading, but I am going to read it because it's just such a great reminder for so many of us of the importance of play and playing in our making. So my no rules, no plan, no going back fabric is all woven. The setup. I had natural brown cotton from our friend Dorothy, who's here in chat today. Extruded soybean fibers. They were cut ends though, so they're very strange, from a fiber club, and cream cotton Rolags that I prepped myself from bags of bowls. The resulting yarns range from 100% cotton, 100% soybean to every percentage in between. I got up and spun whatever I felt like. Some days it was a fine cotton ply, some days it was a nubbly cotton, and the same for when I plied it. Some days I made cocoons, some days I made simple fine cotton 2-ply. Then I wove it the same way. I just wound ski shuttles with whatever I liked. I wound up some tapestry shuttles and wove tabby with tapestry build-ins when I felt like it. The general idea was an upholstery fabric that I can use to make a couple of lumbar pillows, one for both bedrooms. This method of letting go is tough if you are project oriented. And I have been spinning for a long time with this project oriented mindset. But with this one, I wanted to see how it would feel to work in a context where mistakes are impossible to make. And it was so fun. I wound up loving the fabric and the weave. The fabric is luxuriously soft and complex in a very suitable way. Hang on, I have photos. I'm reading to you guys, and I forgot to turn on the slideshow. I have 200 inches of yardage, enough for both lumbar pillows and some extra for throw pillows. I really recommend letting yourself do this sometimes. It's a very different creative experience. In my case, I learned about moments in the process where I struggled with letting go of control, and I found that knowledge enlightening. Lisa, thank you. Thank you for sharing this, and thank you for sharing this project. I think it's really important. We talk on this podcast a lot about projects, and we talk about where I'm going with my projects, what my intentions are, planning for said project, working on said project, how said project worked out in the end, hence talking today about Metamorphic, reflecting back about things. And sometimes I think I forget too about celebrating just the process more and working through the process. And even my comments about the Woolly Bully, about the Columbia roving, that it's never going to get done, that it'll be another decade, blah, 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 blah. Maybe that's okay. And maybe we can sort of steadily, slowly let go of some of that a little bit in our mindset, that it doesn't always have to be project oriented. It doesn't always have to be about the end goal or about the finished item in our hand. Of course, when I'm running the podcast and I'm organizing projects and I've got, samples to make for workshops and all that kind of stuff, we have to go there and reminding ourselves that there's room for both. So thank you, Lisa, very much. Yeah. Megan says, no rules is good sometimes to help you grow. Nice job, Lisa. Absolutely. Absolutely. Charlotte says, this is so inspiring, Lisa. I totally agree. And then one more from Lisa, because I couldn't not, because it's almost Halloween and we won't have a show on Halloween this year. I wanted to share this with you guys. It's finished. What a problem child basket this was for a variety of reasons. So she wove the basket. But it's done and I like it very much. Thanks for keeping me company while I struggled with this. She was working on this in a couple of our Zoom meetings. And if you're having trouble reading what the little placard says, it says, let me just zoom in a little bit. If the shoe fits, get the matching hat and broom. So happy Halloween, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing all you do and for participating in all of the things that you do. You guys, it makes the community so much richer for having you here. I find it really hard to share with you the amount of gratitude that I have for you guys and how truly thankful I am that you guys are here. It means the world to me. It means I can keep doing what I'm doing and keep creating the way that me and Rebecca want to create. And I just am really thankful for you guys to be here. So over the next couple of weeks, we've got the Wool Circle next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And then we actually have a break for a week because October is one of those months that has 5 weeks. So on Halloween proper, it's a Tuesday this year, we actually don't have a live stream, but I hope you guys have a very happy and safe Halloween. I hope you enjoy your time, whatever that looks like for you, even if it's nothing and you don't do anything. That's okay too. And I hope you have a good couple of weeks. I will see you on November 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific for our regular live stream. And I hope that you have lots of time between now and then to spend some time making, to spend some time with others who share your passion for fiber arts and for all things wool. And yeah, have a great couple of weeks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the show get seen and get the numbers out there. It really does help. And I always forget to ask. So thank you so much for doing that for me. And until next time, happy making, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy all the things. Bye everyone.